Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar on Google Tag Manager 360. I'm Dave Ekman, Chief Technology Officer at Cardinal Path, and I'll be moderating today's session. I'm super excited about this session, but before we get started, just a couple housekeeping items that I have. The session is being recorded and a link will be sent out to you after the webinar concludes. And also, if you have questions throughout, please use the chat box anytime. Just submit those right in there, and we'll get to those at the end of the webinar. And if there are any questions we don't get to throughout the webinar, we'll follow up on those afterwards as well. So just before we jump into the actual presentation, we're going to kick things off with a quick poll to learn a little bit more about the state of tag management within your organizations. And we just want to understand a little bit, have you actually used Tag Manager and you're looking at actually improving how you use it? Are you evaluating other tag management platforms? Do you not have a tag manager and you're just looking to do some research right now? Or you're just here to learn a little bit more? We'll give you a few seconds there to fill out that poll. And while we're waiting, let me just introduce our speakers today. I'm joined by my colleague Dave Fimick, Technical Manager on Cardinal Path's Digital Intelligence team. Dave works with many of our enterprise clients to ensure best practice implementation and collection of all their website data, clickstream data, app data. But he's also trained thousands of analysts across hundreds of companies and verticals, markets, and on the advanced analytics applications of Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager. Welcome, Dave. Hey, thanks for joining today.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, we're also really excited to be joined by Google's own Scott Herman, Product Manager for Tag Manager and Tag Manager 360. And as lead for the Tag Manager platform, Scott works with Google's product team to ensure it's focused on the features that really deliver the greatest value for marketers. Scott, welcome. Really appreciate you joining us for this session. It's great to have you on the line today.
Great. Happy to be here.
So let's move to the poll results and just take a quick look here. So really it looks like most of you are working with a tag management platform and you're really just looking at understanding some of the new features, maybe looking at how you might optimize that use. But there is a good number of you that are just looking to learn a little more about tag management itself. So that's great. Like that's actually a good mix of what we'll go through today and what you'll see. So I'm now going to pass the mic to Dave Fimick. He's going to start by actually looking at adoption of tag management tools and how we can see how that compares to what we just saw in the poll results. Over to you, Dave.
Thank you. So hi, everybody. This is Dave Fimick, and I just want to talk to you a little bit about the adoption of tag management tools here. So tag management solutions are widely considered to be a staple of analytic best practices, yet recent research reveals surprisingly few companies have adopted and deployed this technology. In the e-commerce vertical, for example, only 58% of the top 500 internet retailers have adopted tag management systems, according to our recent stated digital marketing survey. While TMSs are nearly omnipresent within the top 250 retailers, adoption begins to fall off as we look at retailers ranked above the 500th up to 1,000th, where total adoption of any TMS is just 42%. This suggests that these retailers are likely deploying and maintaining their analytics tools via the traditional methods, which we'll talk to here in a moment. That said, we do see the industry increasing its adoption. In 2015, TMS adoption within the top 500 largest retailers was 58%, and for 2016, that number has increased to just over 71%. So people are jumping onto the tag management bandwagon here. So to take a step back for a moment, it's interesting to see how far tag management has come and how much it's evolved. On-page tagging was the first method of tracking. It was the most cumbersome, laborious, and invasive. Every item you were interested in tracking had to be painfully opened up and injected with a code for each and every service you were interested in housing that data. In the era before tag management systems, or for those who don't have a TMS, this is what digital marketers' reality looked like when it comes to running campaigns and tracking those campaigns. If you think about the amount of data you're trying to harness, you have X number of tools by Y number of conversions to track with those tools. Each one of those tools has their own code multiplied by how often you want it to fire. The daily task of managing numerous campaigns using third-party tags on your site is extremely laborious and very development heavy. So the next evolution, this not only impacted the marketing agility of your ability to create campaigns out the door quickly, but it increased a greater risk of error. So the quality and accuracy of your data suffered as a result of this. Also, all of your siloed applications can create fragmented customer data, which means there's no single source of truth. All of your data is scattered across a bunch of different services. This is especially the unsustainable and current digital landscape. This is especially true today. With the explosion in marketing technology and the number of digital marketing tools that are now available, the effort to maintain the needed level of tracking saps all the time away from actually being able to act on that data. So the next step in the evolution is a library-based tracking. And this essentially is a single file that is a JavaScript library that contains all of the tracking code. At this point, it was easier to add and modify these because you're essentially working with a single unified file. Developers would house all of the code within a single or a few JavaScript files or include files on the page. This made it slightly more nimble in getting the updates deployed, but it still was very development heavy and it still was a lot of custom coding. This still required a lot of on-page updates, and it could still be quite invasive. So enter the tag management system, which lets you manage all of those tags in the tools that depend on them through a single layer that serves as an intermediary between your tools and your site. Tag management systems were born out of data chaos with the aim to reduce complexity and to allow marketers to launch campaigns rapidly and easily. What this means for marketers is there's no longer a trade-off here. The need for efficient marketing activation becomes possible because you don't have to sacrifice development time. TMS has reduced the likelihood of tags conflicting as well. This reduced the likelihood of tags breaking, causing tags to drop, things to stop firing, features or functionalities of your site to break. This means you don't have those situations where bounce rate spikes, your traffic fluctuates, and you have data trust issues. There's a lot of calculated metrics that happen that depend very heavily on these being accurately tracked. Tag management systems have simple, more intuitive web interfaces that any marketer could use directly. This effectively reduces the reliance on developers, which in part speeds up your campaign process. And the site speed itself sees improvements. The replacement of snippets of code for individual events, conversions, etc. with a single TMS snippet helps improve the overall page load times. So while a lot of us are marketers or managers or responsible for the more strategic aspects of a website, there are a lot of user experience or SEO implications related to site speed. So tag management systems allow you to proactively take an effort to reduce this overall load on the page. Now the landscape as it exists today is all about leveraging the data layer. The data layer allows for information to be surfaced in a very consumable way on the website. Pulling values from the sites or from systems operating in the background, such as a customer relations manager or content management system, means that this information can then be pushed into any of the system housed within the tag management system. The data layer represents the promise of an omnichannel marketing that many digital marketers strive to achieve. In addition to supporting your digital marketing applications, the TMS can be viewed as a unifying roadmap on how you can deliver customer experiences. You'll have a clear governance of tag deployment as well. The tag management system allows for user tiering and allows for essentially gatekeepers to dictate when and where tags fire. And then you'll have a better engagement with all the stakeholders. The accessibility of a tag management system essentially allows you to involve more individuals in a more cohesive manner.
And Dave, what's been really interesting is that, you talk about the evolution of tag management. We've also seen that in the vendor landscape for tag management itself. And, when we installed our first TMS for a client, geez, there was barely even a user interface to go along with it, and this was quite a while ago. But in that time, we've seen really tremendous growth in this industry, particularly in the last 5 years, thanks to strong players like Google and Google Tag Manager and the introduction of their enterprise-grade Tag Manager 360. But also as a result of just lots of active funding and consolidation in the space. These logos represent just a small smattering of the vendors we've seen over the years. But a vendor landscape that sort of once looked like this, now, Dave, if you just go to the next slide there, you see it actually start to change. There's a number of them, and hit one more time, please, Dave. You can see that it really has, you've seen a number of changes here where the introduction of Google Tag Manager and Tag Manager 360, Inciton acquired Tagman. Adobe acquired Satellite and rebranded that as Dynamic Tag Manager. And Tag Commander has become Commander's Act. And Bright Tag also has rebranded as Signal. So we've seen a lot of changes in the space over the years. And this really is a bit of a sign of continuing maturity. But I still see over the coming years some significant more consolidation and maturity that is left to go in this space. There are still a lot of vendors out there offering competing services and products, and it's quite likely we'll continue to see that consolidation as we move forward. Next slide, please, Dave. So today we're really focusing on Google Tag Manager and Tag Manager 360, which sits within the Google Analytics 360 suite. As a reseller, Cardinal Path works across the products in the suite, which is made up of 7 different products focused on measurement and insights. Tag Manager 360 really sits at the foundation of the suite. It helps to ensure that there's this consistent data collection across all the different platforms here that you work with. And Google Tag Manager not only delivers tag management that's simple and reliable, but it also integrates easily with existing systems. And if you have any of the 360 products that you see, paid products, you also get Tag Manager 360 for free. And it provides powerful enterprise-focused features. And we're going to get into that a little bit more during this webinar. So now we're going to pass it over to Scott, and he's really going to dive in a bit to some of the features and even give us a little demo of the platform itself.
Excellent. Thanks, Dave. Oops, sorry. Just getting used to these controls. So as Dave mentions, Google Tag Manager has been around for quite a while, but we only recently in the last year or so, in 2016, launched our newest enterprise version, Tag Manager 360. So I'll talk a little bit about Google Tag Manager 360, some of the features that come along with that, both for the free product and the paid version, Tag Manager 360, and go through a demo as well. Google Tag Manager itself has been around for quite a while, since 2012 already. And we've always intended Google Tag Manager to be enterprise-focused, to be simple to use, but powerful enough for both a small business and a large enterprise. But along the way, we heard feedback that if you're putting all of your tags, all of your data collection in this system, you need assurances that things are going to work. You need to be able to contact somebody if you have trouble. And also, it'd be nice to have some additional premium features. So last year, with the launch of the Google Analytics 360 suite, we launched our newest enterprise-class tag management system, Tag Manager 360. And this is built on top of the strong foundation that we've had over the years with Google Tag Manager. The product interface is more or less the same, with some additional enhancements along the way, which we'll talk through. As Dave mentions, this product, Tag Manager 360, is available for free with the Google Analytics 360 suite. So if you have any of the other paid products within the Google Analytics 360 suite, you are eligible to receive Tag Manager 360 at no additional cost. If you don't have one of those products, it is available as a standalone offering both directly from Google and also through our resellers like Cardinal Path. So I definitely encourage you to think about your tag management strategy and how this fits into the overall suite of products that you're using to get ahead with your business. But in general, Google Tag Manager can help with a lot of things. Right? I think some of this we've covered already here, but really if you need to make changes to the measurement of your websites, of your mobile applications, of the other platforms that you have, this can often, and in the past has often involved a lot of collaboration between different teams, maybe emailing code back and forth. I have a background on, before I joined the Google product team, I have a background on the support team for Google Analytics. I can't tell you how many times I'd, in that role, seen minor issues that resulted from typos or miscopying and pasting code. So with a tag management system like Google Tag Manager, changing tags becomes a lot easier. With Google Tag Manager, it's also easy to deploy all of your tags, not just Google tags, but third-party tags as well. And we have native integrations, of course, with the host of Google products that are tag-based, but third-party tags too. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And collaborating is really a center point of what we try to do with Google Tag Manager. I think, I look back at my time doing support and implementation before I joined the product team a couple of years ago, and one of the things that we always attempted to do, or that we continue to attempt to do, is to make it easier and easier to deploy and manage your tags so that you as businesses can focus less on the tagging and more on the actions that you need to take, more on your marketing, more on building better site experiences. And part of being able to do that effectively is a collaboration, being able to make sure that marketing and IT can work together effectively, that your developers don't have to take time away from the product enhancements that they're trying to make to change a campaign tag or something like that. And of course, if you're not copying and pasting code and you do have all of these additional tag management features, like the ability to preview and debug, security features like telling you if malware has been detected in any third-party code that you've implemented, and other testing features, you can be a lot more confident that the data that you're making your decisions on is accurate. So we'll talk a little bit about each of these areas in more depth. But when it comes to Tag Manager 360, the things that we often think about to add to this product come from the focus on large enterprises and what those large enterprises are attempting to do. Now, I will say I think that Tag Manager 360 can be beneficial for enterprises of any size. Right? One of the things that we think about a lot is enhanced collaboration. And I think I've talked to many customers who have told me, hey, we only have one person touching our tags, not because that's the only person that should be touching the tags, but because that's the only person we trust. Or, I don't trust anybody else to be coming in and playing with things and screwing things up because this data is paramount to everything we're doing. So with Google Tag Manager, as Dave had mentioned earlier, one of the things that you can do with the tag management system is have tag access control levels to ensure that all of the users who are involved in this system have the right level of access and know more than they should be able to have. So with Tag Manager 360, we've taken a feature that we launched last year called Workspaces, and Workspaces we'll talk about in more depth, allows you to have multiple individuals, multiple teams doing work concurrently so that you're not running into each other. You can collaborate more effectively. With the free version, you can have up to 3 workspaces at any given time. With Tag Manager 360, you can have unlimited. In addition to that, there's approvals functionality that makes it a lot easier to have somebody new come in and request approval for changes, or have a different team, whether it's at a company that you're working with like Cardinal Path or another microsite company or something like that, or an agency, come in and be able to tag things without giving them full rights over everything. And as I mentioned, a lot of what we think about is enterprise level service support and SLAs to make sure that you can do the tagging that you need to do when you need to do it, and that you're confident that you're going to be able to do so, and you can get help along the way. And as we've mentioned, this is part, of course, of the 360 suite, and with that comes a robust set of administrative tools to allow you to do more streamlined account management, have a better user experience when you're using multiple products within the suite, and to really be able to use all of the tools that are offered to you in the best possible way. So let's talk a little bit more about enterprise workflows. I had mentioned a couple of the things that we're going to talk about here already. One of them that I haven't touched on yet is environments. So oftentimes when you're doing web development, you have multiple testing environments. Your code changes go through staging, QA, production. Maybe individual engineers at your company have their own server environments to be able to test things. Within the last year or so, we've launched this support for environments, which means that when you go to publish now, you can choose whether you're publishing your changes live to your website or to another environment. And you can create as many of these as you need to create. I think in the example here, you can see I've created this QA environment and this staging environment, and then we have another person at the company, Anna Analytics, who we'll talk about a little bit more. She's created her own custom environment as well, so she can be testing things on her own server. So the process here, of course, is defining the environments like I've done above. When you do that, you're given a new snippet. So the code that you would normally include in Google Tag in your website to deploy Google Tag Manager, there can be a slight adjustment to that for this environment, or we could just use a simple preview link instead of an entirely new snippet if we don't want to have to worry about changing the on-page code. And then it's as simple as just changing that that environment indicator when we go to publish. So we'll walk through this a little bit more when we get into the demo, but it can be really powerful and really helpful to make sure that you're testing everything in line with your own testing and development practices. I touched on Workspaces a little bit earlier. I want to talk about it a little bit more here. This was launched last year in the autumn of 2016. And Workspaces is an addition to Google Tag Manager that's intended to make it easier both to have more than one person working in parallel and to make quick changes when you have things that you've been working on for a while but you need to go and publish. So for a long time, Google Tag Manager has had really a single place where you can do things, what we had referred to as your draft of your container. And you could go in and make changes. But if someone else was working on changes in that draft and I needed to go do things, I would have to communicate with them offline and try to figure out if we could pause things that they were doing or if they were ready to be published. And these are all difficulties when you're trying to collaborate and do tagging. So with Google Tag Manager now, with the free version, you can have up to 3 of these workspaces. Which means that if somebody else is working on some tagging, it's not a problem. I can come in, create a separate workspace, and now I can do whatever I need to do in parallel. And one of the great things about this is that if after publishing those changes, there's a conflict with work that somebody else has done, it will let me know that and it'll allow me to walk through a really nice visual tool to be able to resolve all those conflicts so that things are going smoothly. And when you do go to publish your work, we're giving you a much more detailed view of all of the changes that you're publishing, so you can be sure that everything that's going live either to your production website or to one of those environments is exactly as you'd like it to be. And I mentioned one of our Tag Manager 360 features, approvals. So the Workspace Approvals, this is a feature set that's available only within Tag Manager 360 accounts, and we'll walk through this in the demo as well. But what this allows you to do is to limit users with their access controls like you can do without Tag Manager 360 as well. So for example, I can give somebody edit access to a container. Now the access levels within Google Tag Manager, the highest level access on the container is publish. That person of course can publish to to production and other environments. Below that is approve, and that user can create versions. And in Google Tag Manager, we think of a version as sort of a snapshot of all of the work within that workspace, within that container, that's already queued up to be published. So that work at that point is approved to be published, more or less. And below that is edit. And someone with edit access can create these workspaces. They can sort of draft changes, but they can't create those versions. They can't publish. So those users are much more limited, right? Now, with Workspace Approvals, what we've added is the ability for those users with edit access to actually be able to go in and request approval for their work. So as you can see in this screenshot here, you have a user who, this user who's requesting approval has assigned Connie Consultant at awesomeagency.com to review their work, and has imported the description from the workspace as a new GA event tag with a little description. And there's even a comment thread here, right? So instructions on what this person's trying to do. And then Connie Consultant can come in here and she can either approve this or send it back. If she wants, she can leave some comments, and you can have this whole ongoing dialogue to make sure that everything is as smooth as it needs to be. All right.
This has been a really great feature for our clients, Scott, and for us when working with clients, and you've got multiple teams there and folks with varying degrees of familiarity with the platform.
Great to hear. All right, so let's talk now about some of the integrations, the first-class integrations that Google Tag Manager has. One of the ones that I think is often overlooked, we do have a direct integration with DoubleClick Campaign Manager. So if any of you are using DoubleClick Campaign Manager, especially if you have multiple parties, multiple stakeholders who are working in DoubleClick in addition to in your containers, this can be a great integration to take advantage of. Essentially, you can link your container directly to DCM, and then the users within DoubleClick Campaign Manager can actually push floodlight tags directly to that container in Google Tag Manager. And what will happen is that request for that tag, essentially it pre-populates all the fields associated with that floodlight, and it includes a little instruction. So you'll probably notice this is similar in a lot of ways to what we were just talking about with the Workspace Approvals, where you're giving a little comment and asking for somebody to publish it. And for those of you with Tag Manager 360, this does get unified. So the list of things to approve will include both these new tags from DoubleClick as well as workspaces that are pending approval through the approvals process. For those of you who don't have Tag Manager 360, there is an approval queue available. It shows up in the admin section, and that will include really just these link requests from DoubleClick as well as these new tags. But this is a great way to be improving collaboration between agencies and your businesses or anybody else who might be working in these different products together. We've also been focused, of course, on creating a best-in-class integration with Google Analytics. And I think based on the survey earlier, it seems like a lot of folks here are already using Google Tag Manager. And you might have attempted to do, or you might have used it to do Google Analytics in the past. And for a variety of reasons, the way that this has been done in the past has been that every time you go to add one of these new tags, you specify your tracking ID, so UA-123-1 or whatever it is, and all the other fields that you need to set to make sure that your measurement is done properly, like custom dimensions, different cookie settings, and things like that. And we realize that this can sometimes be a distraction. So what we've done is we've introduced a new workflow here and a new variable type called Google Analytics Settings Variables. And when you go to create a new Google Analytics tag, a new Universal Analytics tag from now on, it'll actually just prompt you to select the settings variable, or if you don't already have one created, to create a new one. And this allows you to really focus on your measurement, not the settings. So when you're going to measure a new call to action button or a new part of your website, you don't have to go back and try and figure out what all your custom dimensions were and all of your tracking IDs and things like that were. You can really just focus on what you're trying to to measure. So, this is not a requirement. It's definitely still possible to use these tags without migrating to these settings variables for any of you who have already deployed your Google Analytics tags. But if you'd like, it is right there, front and center, and can make your lives hopefully a lot easier. Now, I've talked about a couple of the integrations we have with some Google products like Google Analytics and DoubleClick, and we have support, of course, for all of the products that we were able to, or that we've integrated with on the Google side that are tag-based, and over 70 of the most popular third-party tags as well. So you can see some of the tags that we have support for here, like ComScore and ClickTail, Bing and Criteo and things like that. We actually have an open program, our vendor tag template program, through which we connect with these companies, allow them to use a set of specifications to design, build, and maintain their own tag templates. So we're continuing to add more templates here. We have a lot in progress at the moment, but so far these are some of the ones that we have available. There's a lot more than this, of course, as well, and when we go into the tag list in Google Tag Manager, we'll see all the tags available based on that container context. Some of the tags we've added over the last year, Twitter tag, we added a Nielsen tag. I'm trying to remember which ones of these are new, but I think you get the gist there. Now, of course, you might have some tags that we don't have templates for yet, or some customizations that aren't included in one of those templates for some reason, and this is the case with any tag management system you might be using. In Google Tag Manager, we have a variety of different custom tag types so that you can deploy any tag you need to deploy, even if it doesn't have a template available yet, or even if it's a customization that isn't supported for some reason in those templates. So one of the most common is a custom HTML tag that allows you to just paste in that code, just like you would have done in a prior scenario or with a different tool. But there's also different types of custom tags for mobile app implementations or image requests and things like that. And speaking of integrations, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is support for lots of different platforms, all the different platforms that you're doing your primary development on, not only web but also mobile, iOS and Android, and accelerated mobile pages as well. So I'll talk a little bit about these two areas. So on the mobile side, we have containers for both iOS and Android, and these are integrated and built on top of Google's mobile development platform called Firebase. So with this new integration that we launched last year in 2016, it's much simpler to get started with your in-app implementation. All of the additional code that you might need to implement for event tracking and things like that, all of that is actually unified with anything your mobile app developers might be doing on the Firebase side. So anything like measuring some button in your mobile app, if they've done that for Firebase, they don't need to do any additional coding for Google Tag Manager. It's a simple addition. One of the other great benefits of this integration with Firebase is that Firebase collects a lot of this data automatically for you so that you don't need to tag everything that you might have previously needed to tag. So things like when the app is in focus or a notification is available, events like that are available and pushed automatically for you. So this is a great way. We definitely encourage you, if you're doing any sort of mobile app development, to be using Firebase, which is, again, Google's mobile app development platform, and also to integrate Google Tag Manager. It's a fairly lightweight, simple addition, and it enables you to make changes to your app measurement after your app has been shipped, after it's been distributed, which is otherwise a nightmare and can result in lots of inaccurate and incomplete data if you're not doing things consistently. And then on the accelerated mobile pages side, AMP is a project that's intended to make the mobile web much faster. So better and faster experiences for mobile web pages and ads. And as part of this, there's an analytics plugin called AMP Analytics. And through this open source project, a lot of different analytics tools and vendors in the industry have collaborated to design and create their own integrations with this AMP Analytics plugin. In order to be measuring an AMP page, if you decide to take advantage of that technology, you normally have to include some code on the page, and there are some options for remote configuration. So we've actually built just a new container type that allows you to do all the tagging and all the configurations you might need to do in the familiar interface of Google Tag Manager, so that consistent experience across the contexts, and just to have that deploy that remote configuration for you. So you don't have to worry about learning all the syntax and intricacies of the AMP Analytics code, and we have built-in support for all the different variables and things like that that you might need to use. Okay, so with that, let's jump to a demo, and I just wanted to do a quick check. How am I doing on time, Dave and Dave?
You're doing pretty good, Scott. We've got between 5 to 10 minutes for a demo.
Great. Okay, I'll keep it pretty concise.
Perfect.
Okay. So this is the Google Tag Manager interface. From that poll we did earlier, it seems like most of you, but not all of you, are probably familiar with this, but I'll do a quick walkthrough. There are really three concepts that it's beneficial to understand when you're starting to use Google Tag Manager: tags, triggers, and variables. Now, tags are really all of the tools that you're trying to deploy, whether it's Google Analytics or DoubleClick, and each tool like Google Analytics can have any number of tags. So I can have a page view tag for one set of pages and another page view tag for another set, or an event tag, and so on and so forth. Triggers are the rules that help you deploy those tags. So it's a set of conditions that say when the page URL matches foo, or when a click occurs and that button has this click class, and so on and so forth, to be able to say fire this tag. And variables are essentially they're instructions on where to capture the pieces of information that power those triggers and those tags. So an example of a variable that I just used, page URL, right? So obviously page URL is going to go up to the URL and grab that value for you, and then allow you to use that as part of a trigger, or to populate that as a field in the tag. So in addition to all of the built-in variables that we have, and there are a host of them here that you can turn on and off so that they don't clutter your interface, you can go and create a lot of different types of variables to pull information from the data layer, as Dave had talked about earlier, or JavaScript variables or cookies or things like that. So there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of power here. But let's take a look at tagging for a moment. And I think it's worth noting, currently I'm in this container, and if we take a look up here, I'm logged in as Anna Analytics. And Anna wants to go and make a new Google Analytics tag for a new page that she's working on. And she sees that there's all these in-progress changes. Right now we're in this default workspace. So if you've never thought about workspaces before, or you don't want to, this is the space where you'll be, right? And she can come in here and see, oh, there's all this in-progress work. I don't want this to conflict with what I need to do. And actually, she can already see that there is a conflict here between another workspace that was being worked on, so it'll very clearly tell her that. And she can go in and resolve it, and it'll let her know, oh, it looks like on the right this is the current workspace. In the latest version, somebody had changed the tracking ID, right? So she can choose if she wants to bring that over or not, resolve it or ignore it. We'll just ignore this for now, but that's one of the nice visual conflict resolution tools that we've built into this interface. So she wants to create a new tag. What we'll do is we'll actually go over to the Workspaces window here and click this plus to create a new workspace. And we'll call this new GA, let's just do an event. New GA event, and we'll give it a description. I always recommend doing this. New GA event for the new buttons we're adding. Okay, and we'll save this workspace. Now you can see this workspace is clear. There's nothing in here. If I do go to the tags and triggers and variables, we're still in the same container, but we're sort of in a fresh workspace on top of that container. So no changes have been made is what this is telling me. Now what I'll do, I'll go into my tag section here, and I'll create a new tag. I'll click to choose a tag to type to begin setup. And here we can see a list of all the tags that are available in this container context. Now, if I were in a mobile container or an AMP container, the tags here might be different. We might see more tags or a different set of tags. In a web container like this, I can see all of the Google featured tags up top, some custom tags that are available to me, and then all of these third-party tags as well. We'll select the Universal Analytics tag. I had said I wanted to do an event, so we will do that here. I'll just call this button click, click, and then you can think about the right things to include in your own measurement strategy. I'm just picking some things quickly here. And now I'm being prompted for my GA settings variable, right? And we talked about this a little bit earlier. It looks like somebody has already set up a standard GA settings variable for me, so I don't have to think about any of my settings. If I want to see what that is, I can click the info icon, and it'll show me, oh, it's just setting it to UA-12345-1, which is a fake property. If I wanted to override any of those settings, I can do that by checking this box. And now I could go and adjust that tracking ID, but keep all of the other settings, or I could click in here and adjust some of the custom dimensions and metrics and so on. And we will configure this. Let's do this based on this. Let's create a new trigger here, and we'll do this on clicks of some clicks, and we'll do clicks where the click classes contains blue. Okay, so we have this new click trigger set up. We have this tag, and this is our UA blue button event tag. Okay, so we'll save this, and now we'll actually go to submit it. And you can see, because Analytics has approve access but not publish, she can't publish this change. She can either create a version, which will create a snapshot of this change set, or she can request approval, which is what she'll do. And she'll request approval from Devin Developer and say, hey Devin, new GA event tag, please take a look. Okay, and then request that. And she'll see that it's pending approval, and if we were to switch over to Devin and refresh the page, and this is what Devin would see he has a little notification in his approval section with this tag here. Hey Devin, new GA event tag, looks good. And then he can just approve this and submit the changes and publish it. And now this change will be live on the website. One thing to note, we always recommend previewing your changes before you do publish them live. This button here will put you into a preview mode, and then when we go to our website and do a refresh of that page, we can see all the tags that have fired here and all of the tags that haven't yet fired. So definitely a great way to ensure that you're QAing your tag configurations effectively. Okay, so let's now switch back to the presentation. And I think one of the things I wanted to highlight here is that we're focusing a lot on this collaboration of tagging to make your lives easier, but also to ensure that all of the data that's being collected as a result of this, remember that we think of this really as the foundation of a lot of these other tools that you're using. It's really important that your data is accurate. Right? And a tool like this can help you ensure that things are being done consistently across pages, across different websites, that all of the users who need to be involved in this are involved and have reviewed things, that you've checked things on your different testing environments, and so on. So to take a look at a quick success story, Airbnb, I think many of you are familiar with. Airbnb is an online community marketplace for renting accommodations, and Airbnb decided to use Google Tag Manager to streamline a lot of the different collaboration that they needed to do between their different teams. They have, of course, a global presence and do a lot of campaigns and tagging, not only in one region but globally. And being able to test things effectively and QA them through Google Tag Manager has meant that they're able to do things much more quickly than they had been able to do in the past. And more than that, by being able to debug things and preview things and ensure that everything is tagged effectively, they can actually make sure that more than 90% of their actual conversions, the data for that is captured effectively, which had been a problem for them in the past. So by using Google Tag Manager, they're not only able to streamline the collaboration and the deployment of tags, but also to do so a lot more effectively and accurately so that their data is as good as possible. So with that, I will hand it back to Dave.
Yeah, just while you guys are switching back there, we've seen really similar things with our client, Scott. And, one of the things you didn't talk about today that we really like about Google Tag Manager and Tag Manager 360 is the API access. We've leveraged that with a variety of clients in different ways, but one of the ways is really to help automate some of the workflow for clients with really large presence, many domains, many websites. They've got some type of global standard implementation that they want to deploy across hundreds or even thousands of sites. But then they also want these individual sites to have some level of customized control that they can do as well. And so we've developed features that leverage the API that really allow some of our clients to manage this much more easily through automation. And it's been really great.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dave, and I think I'll add to that. We're definitely continuing to think about that. So we recently launched a new version of our API a couple of months ago that does allow you to work with Workspaces, and we'll have more features coming not only for the free version of Google Tag Manager, which we're continuing to invest in, but for Tag Manager 360 as well that build on that need.
All right, Dave, over to you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, guys. Yeah, so just some high-level best practices for you folks, but be strategic about when you deploy out your GTM containers. Nothing ruins a weekend like a botched or a weekend like a botched Friday afternoon GTM deployments. So make sure you have all hands on deck when deploying out and validating the data and an appropriate time window after you push it out. Making sure you're involving a cross-functional team. A GTM implementation has a lot of stakeholders. While GTM and tag management systems in general seem development heavy, the consumer of the data is collected is going to go to those marketers and those executives. So you want to make sure that you're looping them into this process. Clearly define naming conventions and container structure. Naming conventions are going to save you a ton of labor overhead in maintaining the implementation. Having clear, concise, and human-readable values and names will ensure that your team has the flexibility to facilitate changes quickly and easily. Following placement guidelines too. Placement of the GTM container and data layer is paramount in terms of importance. The accuracy of your data depends on where this code is placed and that it's placed in an accurate manner. Always be testing. This tool is going to allow you as marketers to open up the door to facilitate change. So since it's much more flexible, you have the ability to do more testing and understand the tool, understand your site. Your site's going to change quite a bit, like any technology-based item is going to do. So GTM will enhance your ability to do some testing in that regard. And Scott, discussed many features today, and many of them revolve around incorporating different types of users operating concurrently in the system. You want to make sure that you leverage some of the stuff that we talked about. So, Dave, if you want to walk us through some of Cardinal Path's items.
Sure, I'll just wrap up really quick here. I want to leave some time to make sure we get through questions, but just sort of to wrap up here from the Cardinal Path side, we support our clients with their use of tag management platforms in really many different ways. So it can be as simple as training and enabling clients on the tools to performing implementations and ongoing management to full white glove service where we become our client's analytics team and address all their needs. So there's a variety of different ways that resellers and agencies like Cardinal Path can help you be sure that you're leveraging the platform effectively. And really, a tag management solution, a TMS, is a means to an end. It is something that is a tool that's fitting into a much broader process about getting that solid data collection that can then enable you to generate those analyses and insights and leverage that data that you're collecting. And so, there's a lot of other pieces that come into that, from KPI frameworks and implementations, QA testing, and just make sure that as you leverage a TMS, you have those clear processes in place. So let's jump to some questions here. Let me just take a look to some of the things that come in. So first one here, I'll take a crack at, and then maybe I'll pass on some of the others to Dave and Scott. If you have Google Analytics 360, do you automatically have Google Tag Manager 360, or do you sign up for GTM 360 separately? So if you are a Google Analytics 360 customer, you automatically have the ability to get GTM 360 for free. But you do need to make sure that your Tag Manager containers are linked to the 360 Suite home site and then are enabled on 360. So if you're having trouble doing that, contact, if you've purchased through a reseller, contact your reseller contact. If you purchase through Google, contact Google directly. But typically for us, when we're activating clients on Google Analytics 360 and know that they have Google Tag Manager, we will also ensure that we're enabling those containers on GTM 360, because we want to make sure that you get immediate access to the SLA as well as the other features that are available. So another one here, this one sort of is related to GTM and Optimize. So I assume we're able to create tags, event tags as an example, for any unique code being generated in variants within Google Optimize. An example of this being tracking a button click on a button only appearing in an Optimize variant page. Scott, maybe I'll pass that one to you. I mean, it's really, I think, just creating an event on any button, which is no problem within GTM as far as I know.
Yeah, that's more or less correct. When you have Google Tag Manager on the page, it'll be able to interact with any of the page level variations, but also any buttons that are available on that page. You don't have to hard code any of that. So if you do have a button that's showing up in a particular variant, you can certainly still create a trigger to ensure that that's being tagged effectively.
Perfect. Well, Dave, maybe I'll give you this one. Does Tag Manager require development skills?
So it doesn't, and it does, right? So if you really want to unlock the some of the more advanced features, such as tethering to specific elements, or getting more advanced with a bit more of the buried aspects of surfacing data on your site, it does help to have development chops when working in GTM. That doesn't mean that the tool is not accessible to everyone, though. There are a lot of things on the page in GTM that you can grab very quickly and easily. There are a lot of turnkey solutions in there that do make it a lot simpler and accessible. So it's almost like it bridges the gap between the marketing team and the development team in terms of technical skill set.
Great, thanks a lot. We'll take just a couple more and we'll wrap up here. So for clients that are looking, or customers that are looking to migrate from just standard on-page GA tagging to Google Tag Manager, any key recommendations for transitioning those reporting numbers to stakeholders? I'll start with this, and if either of you want to jump in, let me know. But if you're really just transitioning the exact same type of tracking, all your events are the same and everything else is the same, there may be some very slight changes, but generally you should see the data maintained pretty consistently. Now, if you're during that transition to Google Tag Manager, looking at taking an opportunity to say, hey, this is a great time to actually reevaluate how we implemented our Google Analytics tracking and really take another crack at it in a way that better meets our business needs, well, that's something quite different, and that's, I think, where there can be an educational component that this is actually a different implementation, and we've updated it to better reflect our business needs. And you can, across some really key metrics, whether you leverage an event or page views and things like that, pick some of those metrics that are going to be implemented consistently with the historic version, and you can use those as baselines to really show that, hey, look, tracking is consistent here, tracking's remaining well, but what we've done is really brought it up to much more on par with what we should be looking at tracking.
And this is Scott again. I'll just add to that, Dave. I think you hit the nail on the head there. One technique that folks could employ is assuming that the general settings are intended to be the same, to additionally tag GTM while they're tagging GA, but create a new property in Google Analytics and send data to that. So I think we took a look at how to set the Google Analytics settings. You can have that be whatever, that tracking ID be whatever you need it to be. So you can send data to another property in parallel and run that for a week or a couple of weeks or a month or however long it's going to take to get things in line and give you confidence, and then move on from there.
Yeah, that's great. We've definitely done that with some clients in the past to help them get that baseline, and more so when people are actually moving from different analytics platforms. But that's a great point, Scott. Thanks. So I think we're almost at the top of the hour here. We're going to wrap up, but there are some questions we didn't get to. What we will do is we'll follow up on those after the webinar and send those out to folks. But I'd like to give a big thank you to both Dave Fimick and Scott Herman from Google for joining today and helping answer some of the questions and really taking us through the overview of Google Tag Manager 360. So thank you, everybody, as well on the call, all of the attendees, and we look forward to having you in some of our future webinars that are coming up more around the 360 suite.